last section that we will cover this year, and that is the standard form for the equation of a circle. So the equation of a circle is written right here. So it's x minus h quantity squared. So the h is representing the x coordinate of the center of the circle, and then y minus k quantity squared. The k is representing the y coordinate of the center of the circle, and then equals radius squared. So we would have to find, if it doesn't give us, what that radius would be. So here is our first question. It says, what is the standard equation of the circle with a center of 5, -2, and with radius 7? So here would be my h, here would be my k because that's representing the center, and then the r would be the radius that it gives me. So if this is my original formula, I would plug in 5 for the h spot, -2 for the k spot, and 7 for the radius. The only simplifying I would need to do is take these double negatives that you see here and change those to both positives, so that would become a +2. Or if this was like a 0 here, I would just write it as x squared. So there's really no simplifying unless there's a 0 inside of there, or if you have double negatives, or if you were to have like a radical above there. Okay, your turn. See if you can write the standard equation in the got it question. So on the first one, you should have wrote x minus 3 quantity squared plus y minus 5 quantity squared equaling 36. So remember to always square that radius and then put your y and your x in the appropriate spots. Now on the last got it question, you would have to do some simplifying. So when I plug it in, I would have x minus -2, and those double negatives would change to a plus positive. And I would also have a y minus -1, which again would both become positive. And I would also have a square root of 2 squared. So make sure you're changing those double negatives, and then in this case, when I square this square root, those just undo each other, so you should be writing it as just a whole number of 2. Okay, so what if I don't have the radius? It just gives me a point on the circle. So here's a scenario where it asks me to write the standard equation of the circle. It gives me the center, so there is my h and my k, but it tells me it passes through the point 2, 2. You would need to use the distance formula, and I will remind you, the distance formula is this, so make sure you jot it down. You're going to find the difference of the x's and square it, find the difference of the y's and square it, and then you want to do the square root of those two sums, of that sum. So if I were to plug stuff in, here are my 2 points. 2 and 1 would be my x's that I would plug in, and then also 2 and -3 would be what I plug in for my y's. So I would want to find the difference of 2 minus 1, so I would get 1 squared, and 2 minus a -3 would give me 5 squared. Now I would find both of those squares, so I would get 1 and 25. I would add those together and I would get the square root of 26. There is no point in changing this to a decimal or a rounded answer because I'm going to end up just squaring this in my equation. So leave this in radical form when you find the radius. So now I should be able to write my equation. So remember, this was my center, 1 and -3, and this was my radius. So now I can put 1 in for the h, -3 in for the k, and then do the square root of 26 squared. So remember, if you get those double negatives, you would want to change that to a plus positive, and then the square root squared ends up being just a nice whole number of 26. Alright, your turn in the next one to see if you can come up with that equation. So in this last one, I would want to find the distance between these 2 points to find my radius. So you should be doing 4 minus -1, and then 3 minus 1 in the second spot. So 4 minus -1 should be giving you 5 squared. 3 minus 1 would give you 2 squared. Squaring both of those should give you 25 and 4, and then adding that should give you square root of 29. So your radius should be square root of 29. So just plugging them out, center is 4, 3, radius is there. So I put 4 in the h spot, 3 in the k spot, and then I want to square that square root, so that's how you should be getting 29. So standard form is not too bad for writing for circles. Just remember to simplify. So if you get a 0 in there, you're going to change that to an x squared or y squared. If you get double negatives, change those to positives, and make sure you're always squaring any square roots if it ends up being for a radius.